Hello and welcome to this edition of World at War. My name is Mohammed Saleh. It has been a tense week in the Pakistan-Afghanistan relations as the neighbours and one-time allies engage in the deadliest clashes since the Taliban seized power in Afghanistan in August 2021 after the withdrawal of the American-led NATO forces. Dozens of soldiers and civilians on both sides have been killed since the conflict erupted nearly 10 days ago, with explosions in Kabul and in eastern Afghanistan's province of Paktika, on the very day that the Taliban administration's foreign minister, Amir Khan Muttaqi, had begun his trip to India. On Wednesday, a temporary 48-hour-long ceasefire was agreed upon by both Pakistan and Afghanistan's Taliban government, with each side claiming that the other had requested for the ceasefire. As the fragile truce neared its expiry on Friday evening, a suicide car bombing by the Pakistani Taliban attacked a military compound in Mir Ali, a city in North Waziristan district. On Saturday, Pakistan and Afghanistan engaged in artillery firing in the border provinces of Kosht, Nangarhar, Paktika and Kunar, fueling fears that the conflict could spiral out of control. As a damage control measure, both sides then rushed their high-level delegations to hold talks in Qatar, a day after a ceasefire that was meant to restore calm to their border came to an end. Our next report gets you more details.
Islamabad, facing a rise in attacks on its security forces, has repeatedly accused the Taliban government, which stormed back to power in Kabul in August 2021, of providing a haven to anti-Pakistan armed groups, particularly the Pakistan Taliban, which is better known by its acronym TTP. On the 9th of October, as the Taliban's foreign minister Amir Khan Muttaqi began an unprecedented visit to India, explosions were heard in Kabul and in the eastern Afghanistan province of Paktika. The next day, the Afghan Ministry of Defense, without providing details, blamed Pakistan for the explosions. A couple of days later, the Taliban government said that its forces, in a retaliatory move, killed 58 Pakistani soldiers in border clashes that erupted between the neighboring countries overnight.
Last night's operation was a retaliation for Pakistan violating Afghanistan's airspace. The operation was conducted along the entire Durand Line border. Our Mujahideen captured more than 20 posts and 58 Pakistani soldiers were killed, while around 30 were injured. Up to 9 Mujahideen were martyred, and we have 16 to 18 wounded. We have also seized their arms and military equipment as well. In regard to the issue of stopping the war last night, both Qatar and Saudi Arabia called for an end to the fighting. The Islamic Emirate halted the war. However, this morning we received reports that Pakistan carried out attacks on Afghan territory. If the attacks continue, Afghanistan reserves the right to defend itself.
The Taliban offensive along the border prompted a deadly response from Islamabad. The United Nations Assistance Mission in Afghanistan said 37 people were killed and 425 were wounded on the Afghan side of the border, calling on both sides to bring a lasting end to hostilities. Injured Afghans who were treated at the Spin Boldak district hospital following the border skirmishes narrated their ordeal and spoke of mortar shelling from the Pakistani side.
My arm has been injured and my leg was also wounded, but otherwise, I'm fine. There have definitely been more casualties. People have been injured, and civilians have definitely suffered losses because the Spin Boldak area is densely populated.
I was in a room. It was near the gate of the border. Pakistani forces fired mortars. Shrapnel hit me. Early in the morning, I was brought here by ambulance. I think many civilians were killed or wounded by it.
Following a week of violence between the two neighbors, a temporary ceasefire of 48 hours was agreed on Wednesday, with each side stressing that the other had requested the ceasefire. However, shortly before the ceasefire announcement on Wednesday, explosions rang out in Kabul, with Pakistani security sources claiming that they had undertaken precision strikes against an armed group in the Afghan capital. The next day, Pakistan's Prime Minister, while reiterating that Pakistan Taliban militants should be eliminated and Afghan territory should not be used to plot attacks on Pakistan, said that the ball is in the Afghan Taliban's court for a permanent ceasefire.
The ball is in their court.
And if they are serious and sincere, then they should take matters forward. Then I think they should push forward their request for a ceasefire.
On Friday evening, as the end of the temporary ceasefire approached, a suicide car bomber, ostensibly backed by the Pakistan Taliban, rammed an explosive-laden vehicle into the wall of a Pakistani military camp in North Waziristan, killing at least 7 Pakistani soldiers. Pakistan, however, is not only in conflict with its western neighbor, but is besieged by a war within as well. On the 10th of October, violent clashes had intensified between the police and the Tehreek-e-Labbaik Pakistan party supporters in the eastern city of Lahore after security forces tried to stop thousands of demonstrators from leaving the capital, Islamabad, where they planned to stage a pro-Palestinian rally outside the US Embassy protesting Islamabad's backing of Trump's Gaza plan. The big question at a critical juncture like this is, will we witness further cross-border clashes between Pakistan and Afghanistan? And equally important, can Pakistan put its own house in order?
Russia claims to have captured 2 more settlements in Ukraine this week as it continues to carry out some punishing missile and drone strikes on Ukraine's power grids and energy infrastructure. In a bid to cripple Russia's ability to finance this war, Ukraine has been hitting back hard at Russia's oil refineries and other hydrocarbon infrastructure. Volodymyr Zelensky again visited the American president at the White House this week. And unlike the last time, this was a much more cordial interaction. Now, Zelensky seems to have come to grips with where he stands with Donald Trump's position on this war. Now, contrary to Joe Biden, Donald Trump appears to be genuinely driven by an objective to end this war. Although Volodymyr Zelensky has failed in getting the United States to send in the Tomahawk missiles to strike targets deep inside Russia, he seems to have the American president firmly on his side to bring an end to this war. Just 3 months after the historic summit in Alaska, Donald Trump will be meeting with the Russian President Vladimir Putin again in Budapest. But the question is this: despite the flurry of diplomatic activity, have the leaders addressed the deep underlying fault lines that to begin with had sparked the Ukraine war? And without resolving these fault lines, does peace really have any chance?
The Tomahawk missile is a long-range subsonic cruise missile that was specially designed for deep precision strikes, with a range of almost 2,400 kilometers. The Tomahawk typically flies at a speed of about 0.72 Mach, well below the speed of sound. Tomahawks can carry a warhead of over 450 kilograms, that is about 1,000 pounds, and they are capable of delivering both conventional and nuclear warheads. While an earlier air-launched variant, known as the AGM-109, was explored during the Cold War, it never entered operation, and that left the naval-launched versions as the primary platform used in past conflicts, including in the First Gulf War, until the recent introduction of the ground-based variants of the Tomahawk missile, following the American withdrawal from the Intermediate-Range Nuclear Forces Treaty. The Tomahawks, being primarily naval-based missiles throughout much of their life, are typically launched from ships and submarines. And although Ukraine operates several surface vessels capable of launching missiles adapted from other platforms, the loss of its larger naval assets following Russia's 2014 annexation of Crimea means that the option of sea-based Tomahawk missile launches is going to be really hard. The United States reportedly only has a handful of ground-based Tomahawk launchers, raising doubts about how many it would spare for Kiev to make a meaningful difference on the battlefield. Another challenge of transferring the Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine lies in the fact that till the Ukrainian soldiers are trained, the American specialists would be involved in firing the Tomahawk missiles. And Donald Trump, while talking, peace does not want to resort to any tactic that would be looked upon as an escalation.
I think he wants to make a deal, that's all. I can't tell you what's bringing him. Sure, that's the threat of that is good, but the threat of that is always there. Tomahawks are very dangerous weapons. They're incredible weapons. If you like warfare, it's one of the most accurate. You know, we hit 30 Tomahawks in Iran after the B-2s did their damage. We sort of gave it a little capper with 30 Tomahawks from a submarine, quite far away actually, but they're an amazing weapon. They're a very powerful weapon, but they're a very dangerous weapon, and it could mean big, escalation. It could mean a lot of bad things can happen. Tomahawks are a big deal.
The Russian Defense Ministry put out this video claiming that the Russian forces had managed to oust the Ukrainian defenders from 2 more settlements. Repeated Russian missile and drone strikes have bludgeoned Ukrainian cities and other settlements, targeting the power infrastructure and plunging large parts of areas along the front lines into complete darkness. But Ukraine too is using its indigenously manufactured long-range missiles to hit back hard to Russia. This drone footage released by the Ukrainian forces shows a drone attack on an oil depot in Hvardiivsky in Crimea. While Ukraine's Azov brigade shared this drone footage depicting the manner in which the Azov deployed their FPV drones to hunt down nearly 20 Russian armored vehicles in an area called Dobropilya along the front lines. But for the Ukrainian soldiers who are defending the front lines, the influx of new Western weapons such as the Tomahawk missiles, they say, could significantly alter the dynamic of the war.
There is no way out. We need to defend our motherland and our homes. We cannot complain about this howitzer, as it is not bad. However, it is a bit difficult to manage. A lot of things need to be done by strength, but we can work with it. If we are given Tomahawks, the most important thing for us is to find the right use for them. I think Tomahawks are quite a serious weapon, and I believe they could fundamentally change the course of war for the better.
Volodymyr Zelensky is under no illusion about what will be presented to him in the negotiations. But in his meeting at the Oval Office again, he raised the demand of security guarantees from the United States.
One of the topics what we discussed with President Trump was about security guarantees. We want United States be a part of security. We count on the leadership of the United States. We spoke about it. I think that President understands that the most difficult questions will be in any kind of negotiations, in any format of negotiation, will be the territory of, it's a pity, but the territory of Ukraine.
On the 15th of October, the American President Donald Trump ratcheted up tensions between the United States and Venezuela by stating that he had authorized the covert CIA action against Venezuela and was considering strikes against alleged drug cartels on land in the South American nation. In retaliation, the outraged Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro decried the coup d'état orchestrated by the CIA and ordered for military exercises. Though Trump has in the past claimed that he is not looking for a regime change in Venezuela, he has wasted no opportunity in accusing Nicolas Maduro of having stolen last year's Venezuelan presidential election and has repeatedly called him an illegitimate president. Our next report gets you more details.
The oil-rich but economically troubled Latin American nation of Venezuela finds itself increasingly in the crosshairs of the United States of America, the world's mightiest military. The President of the United States, Donald Trump, has accused Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro of heading a drug cartel, a charge Maduro denies. Ratcheting up the military and political pressure, the U.S. Justice Department in August doubled a bounty for information, leading to Maduro's capture, an astounding $50 million. Over the last few months, the U.S. military has bolstered its forces in the southern Caribbean through the deployment of additional naval vessels and thousands of U.S. Marines and sailors, ostensibly in an anti-drug trafficking operation. In recent weeks, the U.S. has struck alleged drug trafficking boats operating in international waters near Venezuela, in which at least 27 people have been killed. The latest of these alleged drug boat strikes came on Tuesday, which Trump said had killed 6 narco-terrorists. The day after, US President Donald Trump indicated that he had authorized covert CIA action against Venezuela and was considering strikes against alleged drug cartels on land in the South American country.
Why did you authorize the CIA to go into Venezuela? And is there more information you can share about these strikes on the alleged
Well, I can't do
drug busts in
that,
the
but
Caribbean?
I authorized for 2 reasons, really. Number one, they have emptied their prisons into the United States of America. They came in through the, they came in through the border. They came in because we had an open border policy. And as soon as I heard that, I said, a lot of these countries, they're not the only country, but they're the worst abuser. And they've entered they've allowed thousands and thousands of prisoners, mental institution, people from mental institutions, insane asylums, emptied out into the United States. We're bringing them back, but that's a really bad, and they did it at a level that probably not, many countries have done it, but not like Venezuela. They were down and dirty. And the other thing are drugs. We have a lot of drugs coming in from Venezuela. And a lot of the Venezuelan drugs come in through the sea, so you get to see that. But we're going to stop them by land also.
Strikes on land.
Well, I don't want to tell you exactly, but we are certainly looking at land now because we've got the sea very well under control. We've had a couple of days where there isn't a boat to be found.
Shortly after Donald Trump said that he was considering strikes against Venezuelan cartels on land, Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, in an address to the National Council of Sovereignty and Peace, decried what he dubbed coups orchestrated by the CIA.
No to coups orchestrated by the CIA, which remind us so much of the 30,000 disappeared during the coups against Argentina, the coup against Pinochet, and the 5,000 young people who were killed and disappeared. How long will the CIA continue staging coups? Latin America does not want them, does not need them, and rejects them. No to war in the Caribbean, no to war in South America, yes to peace.
Maduro had earlier ordered military exercises to be conducted across the entire Atlantic Caribbean coast of Venezuela, and other military activities are planned in the states on the border with Colombia. The pressure on Maduro escalated last week when US-backed opposition leader Maria Corina Machado was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for leading peaceful resistance to his 12-year rule. Interestingly, Machado dedicated the award to Trump, who, ironically, had campaigned for the award for himself. The US naval buildup in the Caribbean and strikes in international waters against suspects who have not been intercepted or questioned have not only been widely condemned in Latin America, but stoked fears in Caracas that Trump is seeking regime change. With Washington increasingly belligerent and Caracas staunchly defiant, the chances of a full-blown war breaking out in the region are growing by the day.
In the Indian Ocean nation of Madagascar, anti-government protests erupted on the 25th of September. In the following weeks, according to the United Nations, at least about 22 people were killed and more than 100 were wounded in the near-daily Gen Z protests over misgovernance and water and power cuts. The upheaval in Madagascar, which erupted in the capital city of Antananarivo, soon spread to other cities, and it has proven to be the most significant challenge to the president of Madagascar, Andry Rajoelina, that he had faced since his third re-election in 2023. On the 14th of October, Andry Rajoelina was impeached following weeks of anti-government demonstrations, and soon afterwards, the military under Colonel Michael Andriarina assumed power in a move that has been described as a coup. The military leadership has promised elections within the next 2 years, but a sense of uncertainty looms over Madagascar's future. Our next report gets more details.
The Republic of Madagascar, lying off the southeastern coast of Africa, ranks among the world's poorest countries despite vast natural resources. According to the World Bank, some 75% of the country's estimated 30 million population lived below the poverty line in 2022. On the 25th of September, the largest and capital city of the impoverished nation, Antananarivo, erupted in protests, mobilized largely on social media and drawing mostly young demonstrators, who demanded an end to repeated water and at times 12-hour-long power cuts.
Water and electricity are two of the fundamental pillars of development. You repeat this slogan constantly. Madagascar must develop, but you still have no solution, even though you have been in power for years. How many years have you been there?
The youth-led protests, which spread to at least 8 other cities, continued to rock the Indian Ocean island for the next 2 weeks. Police, acting in a high-handed manner, used stun grenades and tear gas to try to disperse the large crowds, but to no avail. On the 11th of October, in a significant move, a military contingent joined thousands of anti-government demonstrators. Soldiers from the CAPSAT elite military unit were welcomed with cheers from protesters who called out "Thank you" to the uniformed troops.
We feel liberated. We have suffered too much for years. What we experienced here in Madagascar is not something that any human being should go through. It was hell. There was no water, no electricity, and once you ask for what you want, they give you tear gas. There is no freedom, no right to express oneself. And now, the struggle is not yet over, but we hope it will soon come to fruition.
As the street protests escalated, 51-year-old President Andry Rajoelina, who had resisted mounting calls to step down, appeared to have fled the country, amid reports that Rajoelina had been helped to leave with assistance from France. French President Emmanuel Macron, while expressing serious concern over the situation in Madagascar, refused to confirm the speculation.
I will not confirm anything today. I would like to express our deep concern and France's friendship towards the Malagasy people. Basically, I have two messages. I think it is very important that constitutional order and institutional continuity be preserved in Madagascar because the stability of the country and the interests of the population are at stake, so that the international community can continue to help. Because if the international order were broken, we know what would happen. Madagascar has already experienced this, and obviously the first victims would be the population.
Following coups in Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, Gabon and Guinea, Madagascar is the latest of several former French colonies to have fallen under military control since 2020. On the 14th of October, the elite military unit CAPSAT under Colonel Michael Randrianirina seized power in Madagascar. Minutes after the lower house of parliament voted to impeach President Andry Rajoelina for desertion of duty.
I'm here to read a statement that says we will take power starting today and dissolve. Starting today, the Senate, the HCC, the HCJ, the HCDDID and the Seni. There you go. The National Assembly, we let it work, we continue to work, and that's it. What we will do is set up a committee, rather a council. This council will be composed of army officers, gendarmerie officers. I don't know, maybe in time there will be senior civilian advisors in it. That's what we will establish.
Noteworthy is the fact that CAPSAT had played a major role in the 2009 coup that first brought Rajoelina to power. The next day, the African Union said that it is suspending Madagascar with immediate effect. The United Nations, too, voiced alarm, saying they were deeply concerned by the unconstitutional change of power. Though Colonel Michael Randrianirina, who was sworn in as the country's new president on Friday, has pledged elections in 18 to 24 months and told local media that consultations were underway to appoint a prime minister and to form a new government, uncertainty lingered over what might come next in the impoverished nation.
And with that is the wrap on this edition of World at War. If you want to reach out to me with any comments, feedback or suggestions, please feel free to do so on the ID that you're seeing on your screens. I'm your host, Mohammed Saleh, and I'll see you again next week.